The night was cold and silent on the mining planet. The land stretched wide like a dead desert, filled with broken stones and dry wind. Only the sound of metal striking rock echoed in the darkness. A man worked alone under the pale light of 2 moons. His name was Daniel, a human who had lost almost everything. Daniel was not a rich man, not even a respected one. Other miners called him cursed, because no matter how hard he worked, his luck never turned. Machines broke in his hands, food spoiled in his bag, and every deal he tried to make failed. Yet he never gave up. He kept digging, searching for rare minerals, hoping that one day his life would change. That night his hands were blistered and his back ached. His stomach was empty, but still he lifted his shovel and struck the ground again. Then something strange happened. A faint sound rose from under the soil. At first he thought it was only the echo of his tired mind. But then it came again, soft, weak, almost like a cry. Daniel froze. He listened closely. The desert was supposed to be silent. No animals lived here, no water flowed, only sand and stone. But the sound was real. It was not the wind. It was not a machine. It was something alive. He dropped to his knees and pressed his ear against the earth. The cry was clearer now, broken and muffled, as if someone was trapped under layers of soil. His heart raced. Who could be under there? A lost miner? A dying soldier? Or worse, some alien trick to lure him? Daniel looked around. The night was empty. No patrols, no ships, no lights. Only him and the strange voice. Slowly he began to dig, first with his shovel, then with his bare hands. The soil was heavy and rough, cutting into his skin. His fingers bled, but he didn't stop. Every scoop brought the sound closer, louder, more desperate. After many minutes, his hand struck something hard. Not stone, not metal. It was smooth like glass. He wiped the dirt away and revealed a strange capsule, half buried in the ground. A faint glow pulsed inside it like the slow heartbeat of a dying star. Daniel's breath caught in his chest. He cleared more soil until he could see through the cracked surface of the capsule. His eyes widened. Inside was a girl. She was not human. Her skin was pale silver, shining faintly in the moonlight. Her hair, tangled and dusty, looked like thin strands of crystal. Her eyes were half shut, glowing weakly as if life was slipping away. She looked no older than 16 in human years. Daniel felt a chill crawl up his spine. Someone had buried her alive. Someone had wanted her to die here, in silence, forgotten under the sand. He smashed the capsule's brittle surface with a rock and pulled her out. She was light, too light, as if she had not eaten for days. Her lips trembled as she tried to speak, but no words came out. Daniel quickly took his flask and poured a few drops of water into her mouth. She coughed weakly, her chest rising and falling. Finally, her voice broke through the silence, fragile and broken. Why did you open it?" Daniel looked into her glowing eyes. "Because you were still alive." Tears welled in her eyes. She shook her head slowly. "They wanted me gone. My own blood. My own family." Her words hit Daniel like a blade. What kind of family would bury their own child alive? His hands tightened around the flask. He knew he should walk away. This was dangerous. Helping an alien, especially one abandoned like this, could bring soldiers, hunters, even death. But his heart would not let him leave her. The girl's hand clung to his sleeve, weak but desperate. "Please, don't leave me here. Not again." Daniel looked at the barren land around him. No one else would hear her. No one else would care. He was her only chance. He pulled his jacket around her trembling body and whispered, "You're safe now. I don't know who you are or why they buried you, but I won't leave you here." Her eyes closed and a faint smile touched her lips, the first sign of peace. But in the distance, Daniel thought he saw a shadow move, a faint light in the sky like a patrol ship searching. His stomach tightened. Whoever buried her might still be looking. He held her close and whispered to himself, "What have I done?" The desert wind howled louder, carrying the feeling of danger. The human and the alien girl were no longer alone. Something had awakened in the buried silence, and it was only the beginning. Daniel carried the alien girl in his arms as he stumbled across the rocky desert. Her body was light, but every step felt heavier with fear. He knew he had crossed a line. He had found something he was never meant to find. The girl's faint glow lit his path as if she herself was a fragile lantern. She clung to his jacket, her breath shallow and broken. Daniel's heart pounded. His small shack hidden near the canyon was not far. If he could reach it before dawn, maybe he could keep her safe, at least for one night. But the desert was not quiet anymore. Strange hums echoed above like machines searching the skies. He looked up and saw faint lights moving in the clouds. Patrol ships. He lowered his body and hid behind the rocks, clutching her tighter. The girl stirred and whispered, They are searching for me." Daniel frowned. "Who are they?" Her glowing eyes opened, filled with both fear and shame. "My siblings." He stopped cold. "Your own family?" She nodded weakly. "They buried me alive. To protect themselves. To erase me." Her words cracked, each syllable heavy with pain. "If they find me now, they will finish it." Daniel had no answer. His mind spun. He had heard many stories about aliens killing humans, enslaving them, treating them like dirt. But to see an alien child betrayed by her own blood, it broke something inside him. He whispered, "I don't know why they hate you, but you're with me now." She stared at him with confusion, as if the idea of kindness was strange to her. Finally, they reached his shack, built from broken metal scraps and old mining parts. The door creaked as he pushed it open. Inside, the air was warmer. He laid her on a thin bed made of rags. She looked around, weak but curious, as if the tiny shelter felt safer than the golden hall she once knew. Daniel poured the last of his water into a small cup and helped her drink. She coughed but drank eagerly, as if every drop pulled her back from death. He gave her a piece of hard bread, which she broke slowly with trembling hands. For the first time, he looked at her clearly. She was young, no more than 16 by human eyes, but her face carried the sadness of someone who had seen too much. Strange markings were etched into her skin, symbols burned into her arms and neck. Daniel touched one gently. "What are these?" he asked. She flinched, but then whispered, "Marks of shame. My siblings carved them before they buried me." Daniel's chest tightened. He clenched his fists. No family should do this, not even to an enemy. Her eyes watered, glowing faintly. Why do you help me?" "You don't even know me." He looked at his rough hands, scarred from years of labor. "Because I know what it feels like to be thrown away. I've been buried too, not in the ground but in life." Silence filled the shack. For a moment, it was as if they both understood each other. Two broken lives meeting in the dark, but the silence didn't last. A sudden thud shook the door. Daniel jumped. The girl's eyes widened in terror. A shadow moved outside, then another. He grabbed his old rusted rifle from the corner. His hands shook, but his mind was clear. Whoever it was, they were not welcome. "Stay quiet," he whispered to the girl. The door rattled again. A voice outside, sharp and cold, spoke in a language Daniel didn't know. But the girl did. She trembled and whispered, "It's them." "My brothers," Daniel cursed under his breath. He had no chance against trained aliens, not with this old weapon, not in this broken shelter. But he couldn't hand her over either. The door burst open. Two tall figures stepped inside, their silver skin shining, their eyes hard as stone. They looked at the girl with disgust, not pity. One of them hissed, "You should have stayed buried." Daniel raised his rifle. "She's not going anywhere with you." The aliens laughed. "A human? Protecting her? Pathetic." But before they could strike, the girl's voice broke through the room louder than before. "Stop, leave him. He saved me." Her brothers glared at her, their hands sparking with strange energy. "You shame us even more, sister. Now you must both die." Daniel's finger tightened on the trigger. His mind screamed at him. This was madness. He was only one man against two alien warriors. But his heart screamed louder. If he gave up now, she would die the same death she had already escaped. "Then you'll have to go through me first," he growled. The siblings lunged forward, their shadows filling the room. The girl cried out. Daniel fired. The blast filled the shack with smoke and fire. When the smoke cleared, one alien stumbled back wounded, but the other grabbed Daniel by the throat and lifted him off the ground. His vision blurred, his breath choked out. The girl screamed, her eyes glowing brighter than ever before. Suddenly, a burst of energy exploded from her small hands, knocking her brothers back. Daniel collapsed to the floor, coughing, as the siblings retreated into the night, their voices promising they would return. The girl knelt beside him, tears running down her silver face. You risked your life for me." Daniel looked at her with weak eyes but firm words. "You're not alone anymore." Outside, the desert was alive with danger. Ships searched. Shadows moved. But inside that small shack, a strange bond had been born between a human who had nothing and an alien girl who had lost everything. The night was not safe. The hunters would return, but for now, the girl had been rescued from the dark, and for the first time Daniel felt he had something worth fighting for. The shack was silent again, but not peaceful. The walls were cracked, the air thick with smoke from Daniel's old rifle. The alien girl sat trembling on the ragged bed, her glowing eyes darting toward the broken door, afraid her brothers might return at any moment. Daniel leaned against the wall, his chest still aching from the chokehold. He wiped the sweat and dirt from his face. His body was exhausted, but his mind was sharper than ever. He knew now that keeping her here was not just dangerous, it was madness. But walking away was no longer an option. The girl whispered softly, "You should not have fought them. They will come back stronger. You cannot win against them." Daniel looked at her, his voice steady. "Maybe not, but I won't let them bury you again." Her lips trembled. "Why? Why do you care?" "Humans and my kind, we are not friends. We never were." Daniel gave a bitter laugh. "I don't care about the others. I care about you, and I know what it feels like when even family turns their back." Her glowing eyes softened. She looked down at her marked arms, tracing the burned symbols with her fingers. Then after a long silence, she spoke words she had kept hidden inside. "My name is Solara," she whispered. Daniel repeated it quietly. "Solara," she nodded. "I was born into one of the high houses of my people. A family of leaders, of warriors, of pride. My brothers and sisters, they all serve the council. They dream of power, of crushing anyone who stands in their way." Her voice broke. "But I am different. I did not want to be like them." Daniel leaned closer. "So they punished you?" Solara's eyes watered. "They discovered I had learned things I should never know. Knowledge from the old ones. Forbidden things. Secrets about a power our people fear but also desire. My siblings thought I would ruin them, so they chose to erase me." Her voice trembled as she continued. "They buried me alive, hoping the desert would take me. No one would ask questions. No one would remember me." Daniel's fists clenched. He felt anger rise inside him, not just at her siblings, but at the cruelty of a world that could treat its own child as dirt. "What kind of power are we talking about?" he asked. Solara hesitated. The glow in her eyes dimmed. "If I tell you, you may not look at me the same way. You may fear me like they did." Daniel shook his head. "I've lived my whole life in fear. Fear of hunger, fear of failure, fear of being nothing. I don't have room left to fear you." For the first time, Solara smiled faintly. It was small, but it carried a spark of hope. She took a deep breath, then raised her hand. Her fingers glowed softly, and the air in the room seemed to ripple. The broken cup on the floor lifted slowly, hovering in midair. Daniel's eyes widened. You can move things?" Solara nodded. "More than that. This gift is ancient. Our people sealed it away long ago, afraid it would destroy us. But I was born with it. They see me as a curse, a danger." The cup fell to the ground with a soft thud. Solara closed her glowing hand against her chest. "I never wanted this. I never wanted to be different. But they would rather bury me than let me live with it." Daniel let the silence stretch. His mind raced. If what she said was true, then she wasn't just a lost child. She was something much bigger. Something the council feared, something her siblings would kill for. Finally, he said quietly, "Then maybe the real reason you're still alive is because you were meant to be found. By me." Solara's eyes widened. "Do you really believe that?" Daniel nodded. "Yes, because I was as good as buried myself, Solara. But saving you, maybe it means my life has a purpose again." Before Solara could answer, the sound of footsteps echoed outside. Heavy, cautious, too many to be just her brothers. Daniel grabbed his rifle, his heart pounding. Solara's glow dimmed in fear. "Stay back," he whispered. The door creaked, but it didn't break this time. Instead, a strange humming sound filled the air. Daniel peeked through the crack in the wall and froze. Outside, 3 tall figures in armored suits scanned the desert with glowing devices. They were not her siblings. They were bounty hunters, professional killers. And they were looking for her. Solara's face turned pale. "They know. They've sent hunters." Daniel's stomach twisted. If the siblings had hired bounty hunters, this was worse than he thought. No matter how far he ran, they would follow. He turned back to her. "Listen to me. You can't stay here anymore. They'll tear this place apart. We have to move." Solara shook her head. "If I go with you, they will hunt you too. You'll never be safe again." Daniel knelt in front of her, his voice firm. I was never safe. Not in this world. Not in this life. But if I leave you now, you'll die, and I won't let that happen. Her eyes filled with tears again. Why do you risk everything for me? Daniel looked at her, his voice low but steady. Because when I pulled you out of that ground, I promised myself you would never be buried again. Outside, the bounty hunters drew closer, their scanners glowing brighter. The desert wind howled as if warning them of the storm to come. Inside, Daniel tightened his grip on his rifle, while Solara's trembling hand began to glow with a power even she did not fully understand. Together, they waited in the dark, two outcasts bound by survival, about to face a world that wanted them both gone. The shack trembled under the heavy steps outside. The desert wind carried the low hum of scanning devices sweeping across the rocks. Daniel held his breath, his finger tight on the trigger of his rifle. Solara crouched beside him, her silver skin glowing faintly in fear. Through a crack in the wall, Daniel saw the hunters clearly. 3 figures in armored suits moved like shadows. Their helmets glowed with red lights, their hands carrying weapons far deadlier than anything he had ever seen. They were not here to ask questions. They were here to kill. Solara's voice was a whisper, shaking with dread. They are mercenaries, paid by the council. My siblings must have sent them. Daniel's stomach twisted. He had faced hunger, loneliness, and failure his whole life, but never this. These were professionals. Soldiers bred for one thing, hunting prey. The humming sound grew louder as a scanner swept across the shack. The red beam crawled over the walls, lighting up the room like blood. Solara grabbed Daniel's arm. They will find us. We have to run. Daniel shook his head. If we move now, they'll shoot us down before we reach the canyon. The scanner paused, then returned. The hunters knew something was inside. A voice came through their helmets, metallic and cold. Target detected. Prepare extraction. Daniel cursed under his breath. He turned to Solara. Listen to me. If we stay, we die. If we run, maybe, just maybe, we have a chance. Solara's eyes glowed brighter. She nodded, though her hands trembled. Daniel kicked open the back door and they burst into the desert night. The cold air hit them hard, but the stars above offered no comfort. Behind them, the hunters shouted and fired. Blue beams of plasma ripped through the ground, exploding rocks into dust. Daniel pulled Solara by the hand, running faster than he thought his tired legs could manage. His lungs burned, his feet stumbled, but fear pushed him forward. Solara tried to keep up, but her body was still weak. One of the beams struck close, knocking Daniel to the ground. The shockwave threw him into the sand. His ears rang. His rifle clattered away. Solara screamed his name, her small voice lost in the chaos. The hunters closed in. Their armored steps crunched on the rocks, their weapons aimed steady. Daniel forced himself up, blood dripping from his lip. He grabbed Solara's hand again. Move! They stumbled toward the canyon, the only place with shadows deep enough to hide. The ground sloped downward, jagged stones cutting their feet. Plasma blasts followed, lighting up the night like thunder. As they reached the edge of the canyon, Solara stopped. Her glowing eyes narrowed, her chest rising fast. I can slow them. Just for a moment, Daniel shook his head. No, you're too weak. You'll burn yourself out. But Solara stepped forward, lifting her trembling hands. A strange light spilled from her palms, spreading like ripples in the air. The next plasma blast curved, slamming harmlessly into the rocks. The hunters paused. One tilted his head. She's using it. Confirmed ability. Worth more alive. Solara's body shook, the glow flickering. She collapsed to her knees. Daniel rushed to her, pulling her close. Her skin burned like fire. Enough, he shouted. Don't kill yourself. But the hunters were already moving again, surrounding them at the canyon's edge. Daniel raised his fists, ready to fight with nothing but bare hands if he had to. He knew it would mean death, but death was better than handing her over. One hunter aimed his weapon at Daniel's chest. Another reached for Solara. Suddenly the ground trembled. Rocks shifted beneath their feet. A deep growl echoed from the canyon walls. Daniel froze. That sound wasn't from the hunters. From the shadows of the canyon, massive shapes emerged. Creatures tall and armored with natural stone-like skin, their eyes burning with wild fury. Desert beasts, rare, territorial, and deadly. The hunters turned their weapons toward the beasts. Plasma fire lit up the canyon. The creatures roared and charged, shaking the ground. Daniel didn't think twice. He grabbed Solara and dragged her into the chaos. The beast slammed into the hunters, claws ripping metal, jaws snapping. Sparks and screams filled the air. "Go!" Daniel shouted, pulling Solara deeper into the canyon. The noise behind them was a storm of battle, hunters fighting for their lives against nature itself. Daniel and Solara ran until the sounds faded into the distance. Only the howl of the wind followed them now. They stopped under a cliff, both gasping for breath. Solara leaned against the wall, her body trembling. "You saved me again." Daniel shook his head. "No, those beasts saved us. We were just lucky." Solara looked at him with weak but steady eyes. "It was not luck. You refused to give up. That is why I am still alive." Daniel met her gaze. For a moment, the fear faded, replaced by something stronger. Resolve. He had no weapons, no allies, no plan. But he had her. And that was enough to keep moving. He looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, her siblings still hunted. Somewhere out there, more mercenaries would come. But here in the dark canyon, Daniel made a silent promise. He would not stop running. He would not stop fighting. As long as she breathed, he would stand between her and the galaxy that wanted her gone. Solara closed her eyes, leaning on him. Her hand, glowing faintly, rested against his chest. The night was not over. The chase had only begun. The canyon was quiet again, but the silence carried danger. Daniel sat with his back against the rock wall, holding the rifle across his lap. His body ached from the chase, but his mind refused to rest. Beside him, Solara leaned weakly against his shoulder. Her faint glow lit the narrow cave they had found, just enough to push away the darkness. "Close your eyes," Daniel whispered. "I'll keep watch." But Solara shook her head. "If I sleep, I will see them again. My brothers. Their hands pushing the soil over me, their voices telling me I was nothing. I don't want to close my eyes." Daniel clenched his jaw. He could almost see it himself. Her family burying her alive, treating her as if she were less than dirt. His chest tightened with anger. "They'll never touch you again. Not while I'm here." For a moment, Solara said nothing. Then her voice softened. You speak as if I belong to you." Daniel blinked. "No, not like that. But you belong to yourself, Solara. No one has the right to take that away." Her glowing eyes studied him, uncertain but touched. She whispered, "No one has ever said that to me before." The silence stretched between them, heavy but strangely warm. Daniel looked away, focusing on the entrance of the cave. Yet part of him knew something had shifted. He wasn't just protecting her because she was helpless. He was protecting her because she mattered to him now. Hours passed. The desert night gave way to a faint gray light. But peace did not last. A sharp noise echoed through the canyon. Rocks shifted. Daniel raised his rifle. Solara's glow dimmed in fear. Shadows moved at the cave's mouth, then a voice rang out, familiar and cruel. "Little sister, you hide well." Daniel's blood ran cold. Two figures stepped into the light. Solara gasped, her body trembling. It was her siblings, her brother and her sister. The brother's eyes burned with contempt. "We gave you a clean death, Solara, but you defied it. You've always been stubborn." Her sister smirked coldly. "And now you run with a human? How low you have fallen." Solara pressed against Daniel's side, her voice barely a whisper. "Don't listen to them. They will twist your mind." Daniel stood, rifle aimed. "Stay back," the brother laughed. "Human, you do not understand what you are protecting. She is dangerous. She carries power that will bring ruin to all. Even we, her blood, could not keep her alive. Why should you?" Daniel's grip tightened. "Because I don't throw away those who still want to live." The sister's eyes narrowed.
"Fool! You think she cares for you?"
"She is using you. She will burn you alive when her power grows too strong to control." Solara cried out, her voice breaking. "No, that's not true." The siblings stepped closer. "Come with us, Solara, end this. Stop hiding behind this human. He will only suffer for you." Tears welled in Solara's glowing eyes. For a moment, Daniel saw doubt flicker across her face. His chest tightened. Were they right? Was she hiding something even darker than she had told him? "Don't listen," Daniel said, his voice rough. "They buried you. They called you nothing. That is what family means to them." Solara's hands trembled. I don't know who to trust anymore." Her brother's voice grew sharper. "Trust your blood, not a stranger." Daniel stepped forward, rifle steady. "Then let me ask you this, Solara. When they buried you, did you feel love? Or did you feel betrayal?" Her eyes widened, glowing brighter as tears rolled down her silver cheeks. She whispered, "I felt betrayal." The siblings hissed, their faces twisting with rage. She has chosen the human. In that moment, the canyon shook with tension. The siblings raised their weapons, blue energy sparking. Daniel braced himself, knowing he could not defeat them both. But then Solara stepped in front of him. Her voice rang through the cave louder than before. "No more. You call me cursed, but I see now you are the curse. You kill kindness. You bury hope. And I will not let you bury me again." Her body glowed with a sudden burst of light. The walls vibrated. The siblings staggered back, shielding their eyes. Rocks cracked. Dust fell from the ceiling. Daniel shielded Solara with his arm, staring in awe. Her power was stronger than he had ever seen. But as quickly as it came, the glow flickered. Solara collapsed, her body drained. Daniel caught her, holding her close. She whispered weakly, "I trust you." Her siblings retreated, their eyes filled with fury but also fear. "This is not over," the brother spat. "The council will not allow her to live. Nor you." They vanished into the canyon shadows, their threat heavy in the air. Daniel looked down at Solara in his arms. Her body shook with exhaustion, but her eyes shone with something new. Resolve. She had chosen him, chosen trust over blood. He brushed the dust from her hair, his voice steady. "Then it's you and me now, no matter what comes." Outside, the rising sun lit the desert in gold, but its beauty carried no peace. The hunters, the siblings, the council, all of them would come. Daniel held Solara closer. For the first time in years, he wasn't running from his own failures. He was standing for something greater. And for the first time, Solara wasn't buried in silence. She had chosen to live. The desert sun burned high over the canyon, but Daniel and Solara felt no warmth. They hid deep in a ruined cave, their breaths heavy, their bodies worn. Every hour brought more fear. The hunters were still out there. And now, Solara's own siblings had promised to return with greater force. Daniel sat sharpening a jagged blade he had scavenged from the wreck of an old mining machine. His rifle had only a handful of charges left. He knew the truth. If they came again, his weapons would not be enough. Solara sat nearby, her back against the cold stone. Her glow flickered like a candle in the wind, weaker than ever. "They will not stop," she whispered. "Even if we run, they will find us. My siblings will never rest until I am gone." Daniel looked at her with steady eyes. "Then we don't run. We make our stand here." Her silver eyes widened. "You would fight the council's hunters? My bloodline for me?" Daniel tightened his grip on the blade. "I've run my whole life. From failure, from hunger, from being nothing. But saving you, it gave me a reason to fight. So yes, Solara, I'll fight them, even if it's the last thing I do." Her lips trembled. "You are only human. They are warriors." Daniel gave a small, tired smile. "Then let's show them what a human can be." Before Solara could answer, the ground shook. Heavy engines roared above the canyon. Dust fell from the cave ceiling. Shadows moved outside. Daniel rose, rifle in hand. Solara gasped. "They are here." The sky thundered with the sound of landing crafts. Hunters poured into the canyon, armored suits gleaming, weapons humming with power. At their head stood Solara's siblings, the brother and sister, faces cold and merciless. The brother's voice echoed through the canyon. "Daniel the human. Give her up and we may let you crawl away alive." Daniel stepped out of the cave, rifle raised, his voice firm. "You buried her once. You won't bury her again." "Not while I breathe," the sister sneered. "Then you will die screaming." The hunters advanced. Plasma blasts ripped through the air, smashing into the canyon walls. Daniel ducked behind a boulder, firing back with sharp precision. His shot struck armor, forcing the hunters to scatter. But there were too many. Solara stumbled out beside him, her hands trembling with light. "Daniel, I can help. But if I use my power, I may lose control." Daniel looked at her quickly, eyes fierce. "Then lose it for the right reason." "Don't hold back. We stand together." Something sparked in Solara's chest. Fear, hope, and strength. She lifted her hands and light poured out like fire. Rocks lifted from the ground and shot forward, smashing into hunters with the force of meteors. The canyon roared with battle. Daniel moved through the chaos, ducking, firing, striking with his blade when hunters came too close. He fought like a man who had nothing to lose. His arms ached, blood ran down his side, but he did not stop. The siblings advanced, their weapons glowing with deadly energy. They fought through their own hunters, eyes locked on Solara. You disgrace us, the brother shouted. You destroy our name. Solara's glow flared brighter, her voice steady and strong. No, I destroy your lies. You buried me to hide your shame, but I will rise and I will live. Her light burst outward, slamming into her siblings. The shockwave cracked the canyon floor, sending hunters tumbling. Daniel shielded his face from the blinding glow. When the dust cleared, the siblings still stood, but their armor was shattered. Their eyes burned with rage. They charged together, blades of energy in hand. Daniel staggered forward, blocking their path with nothing but his broken rifle and a jagged blade. He shouted, voice raw with fury, "You'll have to kill me first." The siblings struck. Daniel's blade clashed against theirs, sparks flying. His body screamed in pain, but his spirit roared louder. He forced them back step by step, every swing fueled by something greater than strength, by love, by defiance, by human courage. Solara screamed his name as the sister slashed across his chest. Blood sprayed. Daniel fell to one knee, breath ragged. The brother raised his glowing blade for the final strike. You are nothing, human. But before the blade could fall, Solara unleashed everything. Her glow became blinding, her power unstoppable. The canyon shook as her energy erupted, hurling her siblings back into the rocks. Their weapons shattered. Their cries echoed before silence swallowed them. Solara collapsed beside Daniel, her hands shaking as she touched his wound. Tears streamed down her silver face. Don't leave me. Please, Daniel, don't leave me. He smiled weakly, blood on his lips. I told you. I wouldn't let them bury you again. Her glow dimmed as she pressed her forehead to his. You gave me life. Now I will give you mine. We live or die together. The hunters, broken and scattered, fled into the desert. The canyon lay in ruins, glowing faintly from Solara's power. Daniel and Solara lay together in the dust, battered but alive. Against all odds, the human had stood against warriors, and he had not broken. For the first time, Solara believed what he had always said. Sometimes courage did not come from strength or power. Sometimes it came from a human heart that refused to surrender. The canyon lay in ruins. Smoke curled into the morning sky, carrying the scent of burned metal and shattered stone. Broken weapons lay scattered across the ground, glowing faintly with dying sparks. The hunters had fled. Her siblings were gone, swallowed by their own defeat. Daniel sat against a boulder, his body weak and torn with wounds. Blood stained his chest, but his eyes were open, steady, and fixed on the sky. Beside him, Solara knelt, her silver hair tangled, her glow dimmed, but her spirit unbroken. For a long time, neither spoke. Only the sound of the wind filled the silence, a reminder that the desert had seen everything and kept its secrets. Finally, Solara's trembling voice broke the stillness. You should not have survived. No human could stand against them. Daniel gave a tired smile. Maybe no human should, but I had to, because you were worth fighting for. Tears welled in Solara's glowing eyes. She touched his bloodied hand with her own. You lost everything to save me. He shook his head slowly. No, I gained something. I gained you. The words struck deep. She had been buried alive by her own family, abandoned as a curse, but here was a man with nothing, a human cast aside by the galaxy, who chose her above all else. For the first time since she was a child, Solara felt like she belonged. The silence was broken by a low rumble above. A shadow passed over the canyon. Solara's head shot up, fear flashing in her eyes. Another ship. Another threat. But Daniel placed a weak hand on her arm. Not every shadow is death. Sometimes, it's a new chance. The ship descended slowly, not with the cold order of hunters, but with the cautious care of survivors. Its hull bore marks of rebellion, the banner of those who opposed the council. Smugglers, outlaws, wanderers, the kind who lived free, far from the chains of bloodlines and councils. Solara's eyes widened. They came here for me? Daniel coughed, his voice rough. Maybe not for you. Maybe for hope, but you can be that hope. The ramp lowered. Figures appeared, some human, some alien, all scarred by war and exile. One stepped forward, a tall woman with a sharp gaze. She looked at Daniel and Solara, battered but unbroken. You fought hunters and lived, she said, her voice carrying respect. That means you are not ordinary. Come with us. The council will keep hunting you both. But with us, you can fight back. Solara looked at Daniel, torn between fear and wonder. She whispered, We have been running since the night you found me. If we go with them, we may never stop fighting. Daniel's lips curved into a faint smile. Then maybe it's time I stopped running and started fighting for something bigger than myself. Solara's heart pounded. She turned back to the rebel leader. Her voice was steady, filled with resolve. We will come. But know this. My power is not a weapon for your cause. It is for life, not death. If you accept that, then we walk with you. The leader studied her for a long moment, then nodded. Agreed. Daniel tried to stand, his body shaking. Solara quickly slipped her arm under his, helping him rise. He leaned on her, their steps unsteady but determined. Together they walked toward the ship. As they reached the ramp, Solara paused and looked back at the canyon. The place where she had been buried. The place where she had almost died forgotten. But also the place where a human had dug her out, given her breath, and shown her that she was not a curse but a life worth saving. She whispered into the wind. You tried to bury me, but I rose. And I will never be buried again. Daniel glanced at her. What did you say? Solara smiled softly. I said thank you. For pulling me from the ground, for standing against my blood, for showing me what courage looks like. Daniel chuckled weakly. Don't thank me yet. We've only just begun. The ramp closed and the ship lifted off, carrying them high above the desert. Through the window, Solara and Daniel watched as the endless sands stretched below. A graveyard of secrets. But beyond the horizon, the stars called. Daniel rested against the wall, eyes heavy but filled with quiet fire. Solara sat beside him, her hand finding his. Their fingers intertwined, human and alien, scarred and glowing. For a moment, they were no longer outcasts, no longer hunted. Just two souls who had chosen each other in a galaxy that wanted them gone. The ship soared into the sky, leaving the canyon behind. Solara leaned her head on Daniel's shoulder, her voice soft but strong. The galaxy tried to bury me. But with you, I will rise among the stars. Daniel closed his eyes, a faint smile on his lips. Then let's rise together. And as the stars opened before them brighter than ever, hope was born. Not buried, but alive. Carried on the bond between a human's courage and an alien girl's will to live.